afternoon, everyone. It's really a pleasure to welcome you to the 9th annual 7 Under 30 Speaker Series. Before we get going, I want to thank our speakers for being with us today. We are so proud to present this group of innovators, and particularly delighted that they are all FSU graduates from 4 colleges: social science, business, psychology, and human sciences, which shows the commitment and dedication of FSU to its growing entrepreneurial ecosystem across this campus. The first 7 Under 30 event was started by the Jim Moran Institute in 2012 by Dr. Randy Blass, with the input of students interested in entrepreneurship. It's so great to see that this program continues to grow and bring back such wonderful alumni. We know that although virtually every profession demands a certain level of entrepreneurial thinking, very few students actually gain entrepreneurial training and experience before they graduate. Whether you dream of starting your own business, a tech company, a social enterprise, a nutrition business, or apparel boutique, the Jim Moran College will inspire and prepare you by providing a rich curriculum, both for entrepreneurship majors and minors, an environment that provides entrepreneurial thinking, hands-on learning, and real-life experiences through business mentoring, networks, and internships. Our goal is to give all students the opportunity to learn fundamental business practices that will enhance their career potential and show students at Florida State University what is possible in entrepreneurship after graduation. We believe students benefit greatly from hearing from young entrepreneurs like yourselves that we're going to present to you today. I know you're eager to hear from this amazing group. So to move things along, I would like to thank Wendy Plant, and the director of the Center for Student Engagement, and Caitlin Simpson, coordinator for the Center for Student Engagement, for organizing this great event. Wendy and Caitlin are responsible for day-to-day development and management of student activities outside the classroom. These include business plan competitions, events supported by the Jim Moran College of Entrepreneurship. I hope you will make an effort to get to know Wendy and Caitlin. Now, please welcome back Wendy Plant to the podium.
Thank you. So I'd like to introduce our MC for today, one of our stellar students, Alejandro Hernandez. He was born in Cuba and immigrated to the United States when he was just 2 years old. Growing up, Alejandro played various sports, including baseball, swimming, mixed martial arts, jiu-jitsu, and most recently, rowing with the FSU rowing team. He intended to major in, drumroll, astrophysics, but quickly changed his degree after realizing he wanted to start his own business. He's a junior at Florida State University seeking a Bachelor of Science degree in commercial entrepreneurship. Alejandro, thanks for being here today.
Awesome. Thank you, Wendy. Well, let's get this show on the road. Our first speaker that we're going to present is Dominick Ard'is. Dominick has a background in startup development, leadership development, and strategic planning, and is the founder and CEO of the ACT House, a 12-month residual accelerator where students live in one house for 1 year and start one startup. Through the ACT House, Dominick and his team work to mitigate startup failure and minority deficits in entrepreneur through their proprietary ACT team model, which is skill-based and leadership-driven. From the love of community, he sees entrepreneurial development as a vehicle for economic and community development, and he believes that immersive experiences in culture helps people broaden their perspective and practitioners develop appropriately. Please give it up for Dominick.
Thanks, Alejandro. How's everybody doing out there? Am I in the right spot? Yes? Q? Back a little bit? Good. All right. Hopefully you didn't start the timer on me that much. But anyways, so happy to be back. So happy to be here at Florida State. As Susan said earlier, you know, this program started in 2012. That's when I graduated. And I think at that time, you know, entrepreneurship on Florida State's campus was definitely moving, but it definitely looked like the IBM of like, you know, 1995, right, with the cubicles. But now, like being in this amazing building in downtown here in Tallahassee is so exciting. So happy about all the work you guys are doing. We're now a College of Entrepreneurship, which is real huge. Can we clap that up real quick? That's awesome. That's awesome. So happy to be here with you guys. So, you know, I thought about a lot of different topics of, you know, kind of what to have a conversation about, and particularly with, you know, budding entrepreneurs that are Seminoles, right? And one of the most interesting things that I started to think about is just really this thing around growth. And, you know, when we're in college, you know, whether you're starting undergrad or you're in graduate school, you always think about and you dream about life in this kind of grand vision. It's so large and sometimes overwhelming to really begin to think about on a consistent basis. You know, for me, my entrepreneurial journey, I want to say, started when I was kind of eavesdropping on my parents that were next door in another room as I put my ear to the wall, hearing them talk about how they're going to take care of me and my four brothers. And for me at that time, I thought about, okay, hey, what can I do? How can I avail myself of service to kind of alleviate that burden off of my parents? So we lived in an apartment complex and I started a candy shop, right? We would always go to the gas station and buy candy like left and right. And I was just like, I could probably be making most of this money here, you know? And so we focused on that. And that was the seed of larger dreams that really began to germinate and really began to blossom when I came to Florida State University. I'm a two-time founder. I started my first company in 2011 when I was in grad school at Florida State. We went up and went down. That happens in life. And then I started my second company, the Act House, probably about 27, 28. And we've been rolling ever since. It's been a very exciting journey. But one thing that's been very interesting about that journey has been these periods of reflection that really began to give me the tools and the resources that I needed that I didn't know that I actually had. And, you know, we go through life so many times, just like cruising, going, moving. And I think for a lot of people this year, particularly in 2020 during the quarantine, it's been a great time to sit down and reflect. Some of us have had to reflect. There's been layoffs nationwide, globally, right? There's been times where we've lost loved ones. But what's been very interesting about these moments is that it's given us a time to sit down, reflect, and think about what genuinely matters to us. And think about how do we begin to measure growth, to measure our own lives, and understand what about life really matters. You know, for us at the Act House, we had to do a lot of that. We were ripping and running in a Techstars accelerator in Atlanta, Georgia. And I was traveling back and forth, catching the red coach, doing what we had to do in order to make it happen. And here comes March 15th, where we're in our biggest year ever of going from 6 students to 54 students. And as Alejandro said, Act House is a residential accelerator where students live in one house to create one startup in 1 year. So imagine we're going from 6 to 54, and my team is here today, and they know it. Like 54 was the only thing that was coming out of my mouth. If you were talking about lunch, I was saying, how is that helping us get to 54, right? If you were talking about taking a break, I was like, how is that helping us get to 54, right? Are you reflecting deeply on that break to understand how we can get to 54? I was insane about it. But what was so interesting, like the rest of the world, we had to sit down. We had to sit still. And being that we do shared occupancy in the ways that we actually do it, in order to begin to mitigate the cost for students to really pay for their rent. Pretty much like in Tallahassee, rent is like $700, but really you only pay $525 at the Act House. Things had to shift and change for us. In July, what was supposed to be a revenue year of $30,000 each month, month after month after month of revenue for an entire year, it was halted. But what it allowed us to do is sit down and reflect. There's one thing that we say in our team every day, and it's how we getting 2% better every day. And when you think about that, as I'm seeing like some of the crowd's faces right now, when we think about 2%, it's so small, right? It's like, no, I got to get 10% better. I got to get 15% better, like 20% better. But when you think about just getting 2% better every day, if you add that up over the year, you're kind of north of 700%, right? And it's a mindset, it's a mentality. So, as you guys are going through your entrepreneurial journey, really thinking through how do I begin to build these blocks, have these building blocks for growth, focus on this. Focus on the consistency. Focus on the diligence. Because the formula for growth is not time over diligence, it's diligence over time. Good things don't come to those who wait, they come to those who are consistent over time, every day. And those reflections and how we begin to approach life, whether it be finding out ways to kind of take 45 minutes of Netflix and take 15 minutes of that and shift it over. Or whether it's 2 hours on Instagram or an hour on TikTok and shifting it over to 30 minutes of reading, right? Find the incremental ways to really begin to grow and really begin to push it forward. And I guarantee you'll start to see success a little bit differently. I promise you will. I'll leave you guys with this one little note, and you can do this. Everybody goes through your semesters taking one class, another class, another class, another class. I'll give you this life hack around reflection. Take time at the end of each semester, at the end of each year, and do an audit on everything you learned from that class. It'll set you up for success. And when I, failed in my first startup, we did an audit, pretty much a post-mortem report of why did we fail. But more importantly, what did we learn? And the main thing that came out of that was our ACT model. It was the genesis for my second startup. So I leave to you all today. We'll get into some Q&A. Take time, reflect, focus on getting 2% better each and every day. And I guarantee those singles, those doubles, those bunts will lead you to those home runs that you want to hit and that you can hit. You have the power to do it. Sometimes you just got to build the muscle. So FSU family, go Noles. I truly appreciate you guys. And to all the other speakers, welcome.
Cool. So let's go ahead and move on. I want to introduce Michael Benarde. Michael Benarde is the co-founder and the president of NightCap, the drink spiking prevention scrunchie. He started the company during his last semester of undergrad here at Florida State University. He was a political science major and is currently enrolled in FSU's MBA program. During his last semester, he won multiple awards, including first place at FSU's Turkey Tank. There we go. I could not find it. There we go. And Tallahassee Startup Week's pitch competition and FSU's Innovation Challenge. He is also a recipient of the Jim Moran Micro Grant. Michael's company, NightCap, is a hair scrunchie that turns into a drink cover that women can use to protect their drinks at bars. NightCap has used the power of social media to grow the company from a concept to a brand and has amassed over 100,000 followers on social media and has been featured on both Fox Business and USA Today. Give it up for Michael.
Go right here. All right. Well, thank you, Wendy and Susan, for having me, and thank you, Alejandro. If you would have told me this time last year that I'd be invited back to talk, I would not have believed you. It was just about 12 months ago. I was sitting here in the audience when there was, more people, and thinking about how cool it would be to one day come here and talk about my business that I just started. And so I actually graduated here in December as a political science major, and I'm now back getting my MBA. And I started my company just before my last semester of undergrad in June of 2019. And I had no business or entrepreneurship or marketing experience. So it's been a huge learning process, and it's been a really fun one. All I really had at the time was my little 16-year-old sister who had a really cool idea for a dually functional hair scrunchie that you could wear in your wrist or in your hair and take off at any time to cover over your drink at the bar. And being a college student for the last 4 years, I saw such a need for the product, and I saw there was nothing on the market, at least at scale, that has been adopted, and I really saw an opportunity there. So, let me get into a little bit about the actual business. And one of the first things that people ask me about is, how did you start? Like, what's the first thing? What do you do? Like, how do you start? So the first two things that we did was, number one, we did a survey of 100 women, 18 to 25. And we found that 26% of them reported having their drink spiked. 76% of them said that they're worried about having their drink spiked when they go out. And 80% said that they'd purchase something to prevent them from being drugged at the bar. And I thought these were huge numbers. I was like, wow. And I decided to dedicate my entire summer to just getting a start on that project because I saw a real need. So what I started doing is I just got on Google, just started Googling textile manufacturers in the United States, and I just started calling just different factories. Hey, here's our idea, and we had a provisional patent on it, so I wasn't scared of telling people my idea, but just hey, here's our idea. Can you make this? Oh no, we can't. We really just do clothes. But maybe these people can, and it was like a chain. After a couple of days of just calling different places, finally found one that could help us take our little prototype that we had seamstress make and really develop it into a final product. Let's see. So once we had that, we were like, okay, let's get this crowdfunding campaign going. So we launched our crowdfunding campaign in September of 2019, and it was really hard at first, right? Aside from PR and family and friends, it was impossible to gain any traction because I really didn't know what I was doing at the time. I was a political science major. I've never done anything like this before. And it takes time and takes testing to figure out what works and what doesn't. And as someone who just had no experience in anything, it was very difficult. But we had a vision and we had a plan to get there. We just kept pushing through. And in March, we had a huge breakthrough when we found this platform called TikTok. And we posted a couple videos on there. I was very skeptical about it at first. I didn't really think about, how can this help my business? It's kind of just like, oh, sure, make a TikTok. Let's just see what happens. Third video got 6 million views. I was like, wow, okay. Let's post some more. And we just kept going on that. And now we have I think maybe 8 videos with almost or over 1 million views and 5 million likes. And I think we've done 80 or 90% of our sales just from TikTok. So ever since then, it's been completely different, and we've gained a ton of traction, and all those followers have poured over to Instagram and Facebook, and it's really just like a chain reaction of events. So as someone who didn't know what they were doing at first, and I'm still learning now, I have a few tips of things that I've learned that I think may be able to help you in your venture, or as a college student that wants to get started. So number one is anyone can do it, right? All you really need is a passion for what you're doing and critical thinking skills, right? An ability to solve problems. Doesn't matter what your major is or how much experience you have. If you have those things and you're willing to learn along the way, then you can do it. Number two is be willing to reach out to people and ask for help, right? If you're a college student, you're a first-time business person, there's so many things that go into a business that you don't know. There's manufacturing, distribution, social media, search engine optimization, advertising, taxes, accounting. You can't possibly know everything, right? So you need to be willing to utilize your resources, whether it be here at the entrepreneurship school, which was super helpful to me, and I'm glad I was able to start my business just before I graduated so I could get that one semester of utilizing the school for it. Or maybe whether it be I've used a lot of family friends. Okay, you're in legal, you're in just different areas of expertise, and reach out to people because they want to help you, especially as a young college student. Number three is things may not take off right away, right? So it took us probably 6 months to get any traction outside of just media and friends and family. I think there was a 2-week span where we sold like one. And you know, it's hard to run a business when you're making 85 cents a day. But you know, be realistic with it. You know, if you have a plan and you have a vision, but you have a realistic plan to get there, you know, everything doesn't happen right away. Some things aren't going to work, some things will. But if you have a plan and a vision to get there, just keep going with it, because it, you know, might take off right away, but it also may take some time. Don't be discouraged. Number 4 is be open to trying new things, right? I thought TikTok was the dumbest thing at first. This will never do anything for me. And now, you know, everything I approach, how can my business utilize this platform? How can my business utilize this? Stay open-minded, even if you think it's not going to work. Now, number 5 is not everyone is going to believe in your idea, right? I had a lot of friends who thought it was dumb. Some professors here weren't fans of it in the beginning. I had friends who told me it was a good idea, and then they came back a few months later and said, actually, I didn't at the time, but now I do. Yeah, the only person who can, you know, make your business happen is you. So, you know, you need to believe in it. No one else really has to. And number 6, my last one is, you know, you need to be invested and passionate about your business on an emotional level, right? If you see your competition doing well, doing better than you, that needs to drive you, right? It needs to drive you to do better. You know, if you need to step out of that party for 30 minutes to talk to your manufacturer about some issue, like, you need to enjoy doing that. You need to come home from your friend's house at 1 a.m. to answer that customer service email. You know, you have to like doing that, because you know, you just have to be passionate about your business, because it's going to consume your life, and you have to enjoy doing all those things. So that's all I have, and I have questions later. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Awesome. Cool. So right now, I would love to introduce Miss Summer Griffith. Owner of Drip Drop Fitness, is a Florida State graduate with a Bachelor of Arts and an MBA, and is a New York City native. With no prior fitness or dance experience, she dreamed up Drip Drop Fitness as an inclusive, energetic, and exciting studio, offering unique fitness classes where it doesn't even feel like you're working out. At 23, she signed a commercial lease while still living in her sorority house and taking MBA classes. She worked endlessly and a bunch of hours just to bring her vision to life. Many wondered why she chose to stay local after graduation to pursue entrepreneurship here in Tallahassee. Many of her other young alum moved away to bigger cities. She said that the reason she stayed is because of her freedom and the resources available here in Tallahassee. She was also attracted by a less crowded market for fitness studios. With almost 4 years in business, Drip Drop Fitness is continuing to grow and hold true to the uniqueness and fun. Summer and her husband live in Tallahassee and enjoy traveling frequently, exploring Tallahassee trails, and enjoying its good eats. Give it up for Summer.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Wendy and Alejandro. I have my phone, not texting. It's all on airplane. I just need notes to keep me in line. I know it's virtual, but I think it's awesome because more people can tune in than might be here. I know my mom. I know we've got some of my Drip Drop members watching. So thank you all for being here physically and virtually. So I like to start with a question. I know I'm not going to get much feedback, but why not? I'm still going to start. How many people really enjoy working out? Think about it. Do you really like it? Yes, no? It's like yes or no. Personally, I despise running, and going to a gym full of equipment I don't know how to use with people I don't know really just doesn't do it for me. And so I knew there were other people out there like me. I was active growing up, playing sports, but when you got to college, it was like I either had to play for the club team or the university team to stay active. So I found myself at the Leach, feeling very intimidated and very overwhelmed. But I knew I wasn't the only one. Research, I was curious to see how I'm not alone in this, but the main reasons that people, the top 3 reasons actually why people do not like exercising is I don't have time, I don't have the motivation, and I just don't like it. So I thought to myself, how do I solve those three things? One is if you make something people enjoy, they usually would make time for it. If you enjoy doing something, you're going to make time for it. Two, create a fun community to motivate people. I wanted to create something that motivated people to get out. And three is making it fun, showing them that there's a different way to work out, showing them that exercising isn't something that is horrible, that it could be fun. So in 2016, I was a senior at FSU in my undergrad in the retail merchandising program. And I was in my last semester, and I had to do an internship. And I was in New York City working for Tory Burch in their corporate offices. It was what I wanted to do, where I wanted to be, riding the elevator with Tory. It was amazing. And I went to New York for fashion and left with the idea of a fitness studio. Wasn't sure how that happened. I was going crazy, but while in New York City, I was exposed to the amazing eclectic offering of fitness and how it's disguised, whether it's through boxing or surfing or cycling. And I actually fell in love with going to fitness classes in New York City, and I was inspired. And so upon arriving back to Tallahassee, I couldn't find a place that was as fun. I found myself once again having to go to the leach or a gym. And so I noticed a huge need for a fun workout, a way to disguise it and encourage people to live active. So how it went down, I was about to graduate. I had come back to Tallahassee. I noticed there isn't anything like what I experienced in New York. I need to do something about this. I had been accepted into the MBA program, and so I knew I was going to be staying in Tallahassee for another year. And so I was living in my sorority house, and I said, I can do this. I stayed up a lot of hours. I even hired some of my sorority sisters to help me with press and PR and things like that. Building a website, doing so much research. I had signed a lease in a commercial building right down the street from here while still living in my sorority house. My mom and dad came up to Tallahassee to help me build out the space. Okay, that's what, I mean, this was like hands-on, real start from the beginning. I was actually able to talk to my MBA director and ask him if I could receive credit for starting this business. So I was still taking classes, but I was able to skip out on one or two and get the credit from starting my business. So I used that time in my master's to learn and put it in action. So Drip Drop opens 3 weeks before I graduate from my master's program. I don't know how much I slept. It was very stressful, but we opened 3 weeks before. And the best part is, when I tell people, is I have zero experience in fitness. I was the consumer. I was the client for what I created. I saw a need that I needed. I knew there were other people out there that probably felt the same way. And I said, well, I can make it. Because the whole time I had the idea of the customer in my head. And so I actually didn't teach a single class the first year we were open. I never taught a class. I was the brains behind it. I hired people from FSU, FAMU, local women. I hired people to teach the classes, and I would just constantly explain to them my vision for Drip Drop. And I didn't teach a single class for a year. Now I teach, and I love it. So that's an added bonus. But it was very scary starting something that I had no clue about. I mean, I did not go to school for exercise, physiology, or whatever. I mean, fashion. Fashion is what I went to school for. But I also have a creative little vibe in me, and I wanted to be creative. So I said, I can use my creativity, I can use my excitement, and I can use my passion to provide something that I think others will enjoy. So I started by saying yes to everything. We offered just one class. That's how we started. And now we have 3 methods of classes. I have 9 employees. We have an on-demand virtual studio where you can stream into our classes from anywhere. And we're serving hundreds of women in Tallahassee, showing them that they can have fun while exercising. So last tip of advice for you is 3 things. The first is you don't have to have all the answers, but using your resources and hiring people to help you. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And my husband, I ask anyone, hey, don't be afraid to do it. You cannot do everything. Being a business owner, you have to be an accountant and a teacher, and it's marketing, so delegate. You can easily be so consumed in working in your business. You can spend so much time on 5 business plans and really reading everything and looking at everything, but at the end of the day, one day you're gonna just have to jump and you're gonna have to just work really hard. And you can spend so much time just thinking about how you're gonna do it, when you're gonna do it, and you're gonna just have to do it. So I encourage you to take that jump in. You might not know everything, but you have to start somewhere. So thank you so much for having me, and I will see you after for Q&A.
Awesome. Cool. All right. So let's go ahead and move on to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Hannah King. Hannah King is an impact-driven social entrepreneur dedicated to promoting socioeconomic development and sustainability in Latin America. She has worked in the nonprofit realm for several years and most recently served as a director of entrepreneurship at Dami Station. Hannah is currently the founder of Woven Futures, an ethical fashion brand that connects Latin American artisans to United States fashion industry through a model that focuses on skill development, fair trade, and sustainability. Woven Futures partners with over 60 artisans to design well-made, thought-out products that elevate your daily life while also enabling the artisan industry to thrive. Give it up for Hannah.
Let me get centered. Hi, everyone. My name is Hannah, FSU, Jamurian. Thank you so much for having me. It's inspiring to be able to be here with so many other entrepreneurs that, as you've heard, are also somewhat accidental entrepreneurs. And that's what happened to me. Growing up, I was the middle child. I couldn't even stay with my soccer team at our soccer games. I'd be running somewhere else. My parents didn't know what to do with me. I was that kid on a leash running around. And so growing up, my sister was the diva. She was into fashion. I was a little bit more of the tomboy. And when I came to FSU, I thought that I wanted to teach. So I went back to Guatemala, where I'm originally from, and I was volunteering at a bilingual school. But again, I didn't like the routine of it. I couldn't teach the same thing over and over again. But on the weekends, I would go to the markets in Guatemala, and growing up in Guatemala, that's really one of my favorite things that I love to do. You're like a kid in a candy store. You see textiles on the walls everywhere. You see all these different colors, all these different items, and it's always something that I was really drawn to. But again, I never thought anything more of it. And so after going to school for international affairs, I saw my country and I really saw the art industry in a different way. And so it was one summer, right at the end, I was gonna buy some souvenirs for my friends. I was coming back to the US. I had bought this beautiful, colorful blanket. I was walking away, and this artisan kind of chased me down, and she told me, like, look, I have a bag. I saw you looking for it. Do you wanna buy it? And, I didn't have much money left. When you're in college and you've spent an entire summer, you don't have much left. And so I was like, no, thank you. I'm going to keep going. And she goes, give me a price, like whatever you want. And it was in that moment that I realized that I saw true desperation in her eyes. And it was an incredible, beautiful product, but it was, she was almost giving it away. And after speaking with her, I learned that artisans, despite having this incredible talent, didn't have the resources beyond local tourism to sell. So here in the US, it's amazing because you can make a website and sell anything. You can use TikTok, you can use Instagram, and you can be out there. And for these artisans, they didn't really have those resources. And so I remember thinking, I wish I could buy everything. It's so bohemian. I've seen bags like this selling for $100. And I thought, wait, maybe I can buy everything. And so I think I had maybe $70 left. I didn't have much, but with the little that I had, I bought some cloth bags. I took everything back in the suitcase, and underneath my bed in my dorm, I was living at the Southern Scholarship Foundation house. So I'm sharing with somebody else, and I have this box and I don't know what I'm gonna do with it. And so again, I was still figuring out, am I gonna teach? Am I gonna do something international? I didn't really know. And I got an email about the Innovation Challenge, and it was actually an elective that I was taking. So even though I didn't graduate with Jim Moran, I was here all the time, so I'm kind of grandfathered in. But I applied to this competition, and that's when I really started learning about business. So, I mirror what Michael said. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to be a business person. You don't have to be an artist. I am not the physically creative one in my family, but I am working with cultural preservation for the arts. And so I started in this competition. They had different workshops where they taught you about the business model. And I went out, I started selling at the farmer's market. I think being naive helps sometimes, because if I would have known the late nights, the stress, everything that comes with being an entrepreneur, I probably would have been a little bit more hesitant to throw my $70 and start doing all of this. And so I started selling at farmers markets, and I realized that people love the story behind it. And once I got into this ethical fashion world, I learned that the fashion industry is actually the second most polluting in the world next to oil. And this is something that, astounded me. I didn't realize the amount of toxic chemicals and waste that go into our waterways, that go on our skin. And working with these artisans, they had these traditions that were rooted in sustainability. They used plant-based dyes, they used vegetables, herbs, and spices. And so what began as a little box of textiles under my dorm bed turned into a competition, finding who my product was at farmers markets. I would set up all my products in my scholarship house and have the girls come look at them and give me feedback. And so little by little, we began what is now Woven. Now we have a signature collection with over 60 artisans in Guatemala. We make headbands, scrunchies, totes, hats. We've expanded from our little cloth bags to a whole array of products. And again, I am not a product developer, I'm not an accountant, I am not a marketer, but these are all things that if you Google, you will find it. If you ask someone, they will refer you to somebody else. And I have built a team that helps me, really run the vision of what is Woven now. And so if I were to give any advice to anybody even thinking about it, it would be to just start, especially if you're a student. I was 19, I was a sophomore when I had the idea for Woven, but if I would have waited later on, I think life throws a little bit more responsibility at you. And so there's scholarships, there's competitions, and there are so many people that are willing to help you. There's an entire community, especially at Florida State. And so now with Woven in the future, we're looking to expand to work with other countries. And this is something that I've been able to leave, my full-time job while I was trying to fund my business to focus on. And so the other piece of advice is don't think that if you can't quit your job and, go start a business that it's not for you. After 5 o'clock, you have another 5-6 hours that you can dedicate to it. So if you're passionate about something, if you have something that you can't stop thinking about, that is what will drive you. That is what will drive you to continue working on it. And ultimately, that is something that you choose to pursue, and that becomes your life. And so I'm really looking forward to Q&A. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in, and we'll see you later. Thank you.
Awesome. Let's go ahead and go to the next speaker. Our next speaker is Gerard LaMothe. He grew up in upstate New York and moved to Florida to go to college. He received his associate's degree from St. Petersburg College and his bachelor's from Florida State University. Gerard started a painting company during the summer of his junior and senior year at Florida State. He purchased several renter properties along the way and recently purchased a bar called Over Under here in Tallahassee with two business partners and invested in the Killian Country Club. Gerard is married with 3 kids. He serves on the board of Junior Achievement and he helps coach the Child's girls golf team. Gerard spends most of his free time on the soccer fields and golf courses watching his kids play. Give it up for Gerard.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, FSU and the Jim Moran College of Entrepreneurship and the Institute for having us today. I am the old guy on the panel, but I did start my business while I was at FSU between my junior and senior year, which does make me eligible as one of the 7 under 30. So I'll take you way back to 1993 when I graduated high school in upstate New York, where it was very cold, and I knew I wanted to go to college, and it had to be somewhere warm. And in 1993, FSU had 2 things. They had a national championship, and they were voted the #1 party school in America. So I didn't apply anywhere else. In order to go to FSU, I had to get an AA for financial reasons and educational reasons. In high school, I wasn't the most motivated, as you might have figured out when I told you I picked the university that's going to shape my future based on their party school rankings. But it all worked out. While I was at Clearwater, I got a job at the city of Clearwater in the Human Resources Department. And then while I was finishing my AA, I was taking night classes. And somehow in Newport Richey, Florida, they allowed me to teach a 9th grade math class at 20 years old without an education. So having those 2 jobs at a young age really kind of gave me the opportunity to get out and work in the public, and that was something that really propelled some leadership skills that I was able to use in the future when I started my business. But at that point, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I thought I was gonna maybe want to be a lawyer. So when I applied to FSU, I was a political science major, and right before I got here, I knew that I had this Hollywood idea of what a lawyer does in my head, and I kind of talked myself out of that. Still didn't know what I wanted to do. Right before I got here, I said, I'll get a degree in psychology, I'll minor in communications, and I'll just figure it out in grad school. So my second semester in my junior year psychology classes, I sat down next to a guy. We became friends, and he told me he was going to start a painting company during the summer. And he asked me if I wanted to work with him. I said, sure. At that point, I was living on student loans, which was basically ramen noodles and Busch Light. So a few extra dollars wasn't going to hurt. He never started his painting company. He said, I'll get you a job working for the guy I'm working for. I didn't care who was going to pay me, so I went ahead and took that job. So I worked for a week with him, and at the end of that week, I looked at him and I said, man, we can do what this guy does. So I convinced him to quit, and we started the painting business together. Well, at that point, I thought, okay, we'll just put an ad in the paper, which you did in 1997, and maybe we'll get a couple of projects and make some money and go back to school. Well, by the end of the summer, we had contracts with apartment complexes. We had relationships with rental properties. We even walked into the Monroe Park Tower, which is 2 blocks that way, a high rise, and we walked out with a contract to re-wallpaper all of their common areas. As Joe and I were walking to the truck, I said, Joe, neither of us have ever wallpapered anything in our lives. How are we gonna do this? He says, well, we got the contract, now we'll figure it out. And we did. So around the same time, I met a girl, and she was a year younger than me in school. I still didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. My father moved down to Newport Richey, and he was looking for work and never really found a great job. And I saw some potential in this painting thing, and I really liked Tallahassee. So I was kind of not really seeing eye to eye with my partner. I mean, as you can imagine, I sat down with a guy, and 2 months later, we have a business together, and we didn't really know each other. So I took that opportunity when I graduated to leave the partnership I was in. I asked my dad to come up and be my partner and start a new company, and eventually I married the woman. And that's how I started my business 22 years ago. During those 22 years, we've purchased multiple rental properties, purchased a warehouse. My wife put herself through school twice, got a master's degree. Now she's a nurse practitioner. Superior Painting has grown every year and has built upon the year before it. We've won every service award you can name, and we win them every year. We employ over 35 people now. And this year, I was put on a Seminole 100 list, which is the 100 fastest growing companies of FSU alumni. which is really cool, and I'm really proud that after 22 years, we're still growing. In 2020, we decided, all right, we've done pretty good, things are going well, let's do a few things. So big into golf, our family's big into golf, and we live in Killearn, and there's a country club there, it's kind of run down, and the members decided that we were gonna buy it. So we bought into the club on the board of directors level, and several members we're gonna bring that golf course back to the prominence that it was in its glory days. Then in January, two friends of mine and we bought the old wine loft. We turned it into the over-under bar. And I don't think there's a possible time other than maybe Prohibition that's a worse time to buy a bar than January of 2020. But we did. And during this past year, we kind of had to think outside of the box, get creative, pivot, figure out what the rules are today, and the rules are going to change tomorrow. But we're still open. We're down the street. We're on the corner of Thomasville and 6th Avenue. Come and see us. We're paying our bills. We know that once this pandemic is over, we're going to be a very, very good success right there. Now, I kind of gave you guys I didn't really talk much about my painting company because it's painting houses. It's not all that exciting. I gave you sort of the Cliff's Notes version of my life because everybody's path is different. But as an FSU student, whether you're in the College of Entrepreneurship, you have the resources here. You have the Jim Moran Institute here. You have more resources at your fingertips than most people do around the entire country. I was just a kid with an idea and just really kind of fell into it. But if you're thinking about being an entrepreneur, if you want to write your own ticket, if you want to be your own boss, you've got to go and do it. You can't be afraid of doing it. Don't be that person, and we all know that person that just sits around and writes business plans and doesn't do anything because they haven't written a perfect business plan. There is no perfect business plan. We never heard of coronavirus 10 months ago when we signed the lease to buy the bar, and we figured it out, and you will too. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Our next speaker is Nelisa Lee. Nelisa currently resides in Jacksonville, Florida, where she co-owns and operates Evergreen Homebuyers, a real estate investment company alongside her husband, Daniel. The business was founded in July of 2019 and has already purchased over 50 rental properties from Jacksonville families looking to sell their properties as is. They help homeowners who may be facing foreclosure or have inherited unwanted properties, or even just people looking for an easy option to sell their home. Evergreen primarily focuses on flipping houses and purchasing rental properties. Prior to real estate, Nelisa worked in education after graduating from Florida State with a family and child sciences degree in 2011, and then later transitioned into an accounting career. Her experience working as a CPA in public accounting at EY and auditing large public companies' processes has helped provide an important framework for scaling their real estate business in such a short amount of time. As real estate investors, Nelisa and her husband are on pace to produce over $3 million in revenue this year. Give it up for Nelisa.
I graduated from Florida State with a family and child sciences degree, and today I flip houses. How the heck did I get here? Let's start with the beginning. I can't take credit for anything I've accomplished without giving my parents a quick shout out for the way they raised me. They were very much a process instead of results type of parenting. They didn't care if I was the slowest girl on the track team or if I didn't have a 4.0 GPA, as long as I put in the work and had tried my best. Focusing on the process instead of the results is something that has gotten me through each phase of my journey and helped navigate through the lows that inevitably come in between the highs. You heard my quick intro, and it probably seems a little all over the place. That's because it is. I graduated from FSU with a family and child sciences degree, and then later became a CPA, and now I'm a business owner, all before the age of 30. The reality of an entrepreneur is that there's no ladder to climb or map to follow that tells you where you're going. You just start somewhere. Figure out the next step and make your own path. It's funny, the reason I went back to school for business after FSU was that I wanted to open my own preschool. I loved working with kids and felt the school I worked at was mismanaged and could use someone with better business sense. So I returned to school and fell into a very natural path for accountants. I started my new career at EY, one of the big 4 accounting firms, where you do your job well, get promoted every year, stick around for the bonuses, and just continue to climb the ladder and work your way up. While there was absolutely nothing wrong with that route, I fooled myself into thinking that this was better for me than the original dream I had set out for myself. I was well paid, had great job security, loved my coworkers. What more could I want? There was something missing and I couldn't quite figure out what it was. I hopped around to a couple other jobs after EY and even landed what I thought was the corporate job of my dreams. I had the best boss I could have wanted. I loved my teammates. I felt well compensated. I got my desk with river views, yet still I wanted more. I learned that what was missing was freedom. When you take that first leap to starting a business, it can be a little scary. Fortunately, I didn't take that step alone. I had my husband, Daniel, alongside me every step of the way. He left his accounting job at the same time, and we were both left with our backs against the wall to figure this thing out. We both had fallen in love with the idea of getting into real estate. Let's be real, HGTV can make anyone want to flip a house. But we had been reading, listening to podcasts, and studying other investors in our market, and learning that there was an entire industry that we knew nothing about. There were people in our market using real estate as a vehicle to living the life they wanted, and the opportunity was sitting right in front of us. So we did what we do best and went to work, both on our business and in our business, every day. Which brings me to my first point, consistency. Running is a huge part of my life, and I will always use this as a metaphor because the parallels to business are incredible. When you first start out running, 1 mile can feel like an eternity, and each day you get up and run a little more. You get to the point of feeling fast, healthy, and strong, and then you get injured and you have to stop running until you can build your strength back up. It feels like you've started over and you'll never get back to the shape you were once in, but somehow you do. Some days are harder than others. Many days you don't actually feel like running, but you get up and do it anyway. And then when you're completing your first half marathon, you manage to cross the finish line. The next thing you know, you're signing up for that next race and doing it all over again, except this time you set different goals. Instead of just completing the race, you strive for a certain pace, or you start talking about race strategy. You focus on the process completely differently the next time around. The same goes for business. On day 1, when you don't have a business name or a website or profit, you have to start somewhere. Start with how your business will generate revenue. What product or service are you trying to sell? How will you get new customers? What forms of marketing will you use? Thinking about all of this stuff at once can be overwhelming, so much like running, you take 1 step at a time. Start with walking and pick up your stride, and if you're consistent and put in the work, you start to pick up speed and momentum. And the running hasn't actually gotten any easier, you've just gotten stronger. Trusting in the process to get you just a little closer to your goal each day, and you'll quickly look back and realize how far you've come. Which brings me to the next topic, mindset. This is one of those topics that is often discussed, but not emphasized just how important it truly is. If you don't believe in something, it's not going to happen. You can't just hope that things will work out. You have to believe that they will. The difference between any successful business owner and one that fails is that the successful business owner learns to pivot when necessary and adapts with change. In a business like real estate, it can be very easy to lose money on a deal or spend money on a marketing campaign that turns out to be a bust. This is the exact reason so many people run away from entrepreneurship. This can and likely will happen. If we had given up every time something didn't go the way we planned, we wouldn't have reaped the benefits of the countless other times that it went better than planned. Learn from the mistakes and make changes. There are a million reasons that other people will tell you that the career path of being an entrepreneur is risky. Ironic how that advice almost always comes from someone who tried to start a business and failed, or others who are too afraid to ever take that risk. Don't listen to those people. Seek out advice from people who have actually done what you're trying to do. Also, don't be afraid to fail. Failure is simply part of the process. If your mindset is strong, you'll always figure out a way, because for the true entrepreneur, there's no other option. The next point I want to make is that it's never too late to start. I remember when I graduated from FSU, I thought 30 was old. I thought that students who had taken an extra year or two to graduate were doing it wrong, missing out on life somehow because they weren't on the fast track already. It was this idea that if you didn't follow the path correctly, you'd end up being a failure, and those people obviously weren't living up to their true potential. Now I realize how silly that way of thinking was. The idea that you need to have your life figured out when you're in college is crazy. While in school, your goal should be to learn as much as you can, soak it all in, meet as many different types of people as you can, and build your skill set. Learn to time manage and make connections. Planning out the rest of your life can wait. The skills you learn and the connections you might make may lead to places you'd never dream about, which is why networking is so important. The people you meet along your journey will impact you in ways you didn't realize. Don't be afraid to tell people who you are and what you do. Share your story and learn to be vulnerable. When you start to open up to others, good things can happen. I want to leave you with one more thing before I go, and that is the importance of being a lifelong learner. Be a student of your industry. There is always something to learn from someone. There will always be a more successful business owner than you or a company that has a better system in place. Every moment is an opportunity to learn. Each failure in your business is an opportunity for growth. Each person you meet has a story to tell that could influence the way your story ends. If you think you know everything, you will never learn anything. Thank you.
Awesome. Our last and final speaker is Tarek Waked. Tarek is a serial entrepreneur who founded multiple tech companies, a startup pre-seed studio, and now co-founder of an early-stage venture capital firm. In his current role as general partner at Type 1 Ventures, he looks to back extraordinary founders looking to progress humanity forward through technology and innovation. Give it up for Tarek.
Is it this X or this X or just in the middle? Middle's good. Thank you for having me, everyone. My name's Tarek. As Alejandro mentioned, I run a startup, early stage startup fund. What we do is we find entrepreneurs that are in the requirement of capital, are trying to start their businesses in the seed or the Series A stages, and we'll provide capital support, expertise, connect them with the right people in the ecosystem. As an investor, as a founder, when I first started, it was very hard to get in front of investors. The idea of pitching somebody and asking somebody for money was sort of taboo for me. So you'd get nervous, people wouldn't respond to your emails, your LinkedIn messages, and you'd get a lot of no's. So when we ended up putting our heads together, my partner and I, who actually lost his money in my first startup, we thought that my expertise in building a company and his expertise in institutional investing would go really well together to help these startups progress. What we invest in specifically is deep tech, so aerospace, robotics, automation, things that will progress humanity towards what we call a Type 1 civilization, hence the name. And so far, we've invested in a company called Made in Space, which is doing 3D printing in orbit. They were recently acquired by a South Florida private equity firm. And they send a 3D printer to the International Space Station and print things that are very small and that the astronauts need up there. They were a later stage company when we invested, but we were really impressed with what they were doing. Another company that we've invested in is called RoboTire. RoboTire is backed by a founder who's not the best accountant. Sorry, Victor. Not the best. He's a great operator. He's a good engineer. And that's what we look for, people that are good in one specific skill set and that know how to surround themselves with the right people. RoboTire, what they do is they change tires on cars with robots. And they do that in 15 minutes as opposed to 60 minutes with a human. And when we invested, it was very raw. It was what we call seed or pre-seed. Didn't have revenue. The prototype was almost there. And as they've progressed, we've seen his growth. And we've introduced him to the right people, and he's killing it right now. So really excited about RoboTire. Orbit Fab is a third company that has a stellar team. And why I'm exemplifying them is because they're very complementary, the two founders. Orbit Fab is sending fueling depots into orbit so that satellites can dock onto those fueling depots and get more fuel, i.e. extend their lifespan. So I'd like to talk about how I got into venture. I didn't know what it was when I left Florida State, what venture capital was. I thought I knew what investing was. I'd see the articles of like these tech companies getting billion-dollar valuations, and I'd say, how do I do that? And we ended up, it was a non-linear path into venture capital. When I started my first company, we worked at it hard. And it took us 4.5 years. Ultimately, we failed. But we grew to about 50 employees. I was 20-something, 23, 24. And after that company failed, I looked at myself and I said, what can I do to help somebody else in that situation? How can I capitalize on that experience and grow? So when that idea came to us and we decided to put together this fund, what we're providing is at-risk capital. Nobody likes to lose their money. Nobody likes to invest in a company that could fail. But you can only build a successful company if you take the risks of failure. If those who dare to achieve greatly can only do so by daring to fail greatly. So what we do is we pool together a fund and we invest in 25 companies over the course of 4 years. And ideally, a few of those companies will succeed and cover all the losses for the investors. So what we do is we're a conduit for capital. And if you have more of those conduits in these ecosystems, great job what they're doing here at the Jim Moran College, they're promoting entrepreneurship. We're promoting entrepreneurship here, but it has to be it's a part of an ecosystem. To have good advisors, you have to have good talent, and those people are attracted to the right teams and companies. And then what we look to do is layer in the capital so that they can grow. Let me talk about one thing that as an entrepreneur, that really stuck with me. It's called self-awareness. So at first, I would try to do everything in the company, try to micromanage everything from accounting to hiring to everything. But as I got older and I failed a lot, I realized the best way that you succeed is surrounding yourselves with people that are better than you at something. 80% of your results will come from 20% of your efforts. So if you can double down on what you're really good at and surround yourself with people that are very good at something else, then you'll succeed. That and persistence has always been, I think, the key to success. And again, it's a work in progress. You have to fall in love with the process of building a company, putting together a team, working with people that come from different parts of the world. We work with somebody from Russia, from somebody from New Zealand, and you learn from those people and you get better. And if you can make others successful, you'll also be successful. So for us, it's how do we make other people wealthy? How do we make them money and innovate so that we can do that? I think Bill Gates said, I made 1,000 people millionaires before I became a billionaire. So it's about others. And if you lead with that, lead with others in mind, you'll succeed. And fall in love with the process. So thank you guys for having me. It's been a pleasure. And if you're looking to get involved in venture or the startup ecosystem at Florida State, one of our interns at Type 1, who's a current FSU student, started the FSU Venture Club, where he's giving access to folks that are all over the venture ecosystem that have graduated from FSU, and giving access to things that we are not accustomed to having here in Tallahassee because they're more West Coast or New York, Northeast. Feel free to sign up with that. It's called the FSU Venture Club, and thank you guys for having me.
Awesome. Thank you, Tarek. Well, thank you for all of our speakers that have presented today and have been with us today and have shared so much with you. We'd just like to invite all of our speakers back up for our Q&A session. Anyone with questions can tweet their questions using hashtag 7under30 and at Jim Moran College, and our Twitter monitors will present the questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, speakers. We appreciated hearing all of your journeys and your undertakings as entrepreneurs. We do have a few questions from Twitter. So let's begin. So for those that have employees, what's the number one most important quality you look for when hiring a new employee?
That's great.
I mean, I can go if no one else wants to right now. For me, building a team, is building a community. And so beyond experience, beyond any of that, I think that someone that truly, truly aligns with your values is important. When I had a lot of interns through FSU, and when searching for interns or team members, there are people that will do it for the resume, for the pay, for the job. But I think finding somebody that truly believes in something, in what you do, is important. It's hard to find people that will love what you do as much as you, but there are people that come very, very close. So I would say find that passion and that fuel, and that's the number one thing I look for.
I think when I look for somebody that I want to hire, it's usually they have some type of spunk. They have some type of craziness to them that will help them make whatever decisions, that they can think on their own and move on their own. So be unique. Don't try to stick to a mold if you're looking for a job, if you're looking to join a startup. Try to add some value. Be proactive. That's what I look for.
We have 35 employees, and I'd hire 5 more tomorrow if I could find them. I think finding people to fill jobs has been one of the biggest challenges that we've had for a while. But when I do have people apply, I like to see them having, if they have work experience, I'd like to see them at a place for a little while. If I see, we're bouncing around from job to job, and they've had 3 jobs in 2 years and are just constantly moving around, that's not something that we're particularly looking for. So I think some longevity and is something that we look for when we're hiring.
Yeah, I think it depends on what stage we're at in the business. I think one enduring quality that we always look for is humility, and I think for us we kind of define it as the confidence to know what you know and the confidence to know what you don't know, and that level of understanding and that level of self-awareness, I think, really begins to drive people to stay in a posture of learning, and because the business will change. I mean, all of us had to kind of interact with, and not just all of us, but the whole world had to interact with 2020, right, and the pandemic. And so there's a lot of different shifts and changes, and the business will adapt. But I think humility is that enduring kind of characteristic that we always look at, no matter what stage of business we're in.
Thank you. The next question is, how important is it that a business contribute to the local community? How do you accomplish this with your business?
For us, we're more global, or we like to invest all over the country. The way we like to give back is by teaching. So we've done this fellowship program where we brought kids from 11 different schools. We had a Knoll. So the fellowship program was essentially an informative session where us, myself and my partners, we taught the students that were not aware of how venture works. Some were, some weren't. We taught them a course, and then we let them go out and work. So through internships, not necessarily hiring the person that has the best skill set for the job, that's how we give back. Because if we give education and we teach others, at some point they'll go work at a different fund or a different company, and maybe it'll come back to us. So if you give what you get what you give. So we just teach. We like to be educational.
I think for us, there's two ways. As a company, we sponsor a lot of things. I mean, we're constantly, sponsoring a golf event for different nonprofits or, whatever their social is. I mean, we're doing at least 2 or 3 things a month in the nonprofit world. But to get the employees involved, once a year we'll usually paint something that we're not charging for. And we don't really put that out there on social media a lot and really advertise that, but the employees really get a lot out of that. So before the Kearney Center, the shelter was over here by the Strip, and we went in there and I had my kids with me, and I mean the whole company, we came in on a weekend and painted the whole thing, and everybody took shifts, and We've done Habitats for Humanity, and just recently, a couple of weeks ago, there was a lady who lost her husband who was a vet, and a couple of contractors got together and gave her a new roof, and they wanted me to go and touch up some wood rot, and instead we just went ahead and painted the whole house. And when you can get the employees involved in doing something good for the community, it's deeper than sometimes just writing a check, but it's good to do both.
Great, thank you. So this is another question from a student. Y'all probably guessed this one was coming. How has the COVID-19 pandemic impacted your business?
I got stuck in Guatemala 2 days into, so I didn't mention this, I was starting another branch to my business. I will be in the future, but I was going to be taking travel groups down, so curated groups of female travelers that wanted to actually go to artisan workshops, meet the artisans, learn about natural dyes. 2 days into our trip, the first case of COVID arrived in Guatemala. This was in March. So there were no cases once we went. The government shut down the borders at midnight. Our planes were canceled, and I had to, for over a week, really find emergency housing. And ever since then, it has been a roller coaster. But it forced us to slow down, to reevaluate, our business, and it gave us the time to experiment. So, it's been crazy, hectic. I just paid my $600 flight back from the embassy, but it gives you a lot of time to reconsider how, if what you were doing was the right thing, how you can improve it, and it forces you to take a step back. So it's been crazy, but I think it was a necessary pause.
I can go. So, my product obviously is very bar and party oriented. Those are things that are not happening very much. So probably the two biggest challenges would be, one, we want to be able to sell our product in bulk to like sororities, universities, clubs, bars, all that stuff. Some of them aren't open, or they don't want to promote people going out, obviously. So that's something we've just kind of had to wait. Like, we just have to wait for the most part. But that, fortunately, we have very little overhead and stuff, so it's not a big deal. I'm still in school, and hopefully that's something we can get into next year. And then the second thing would just be creating social media content is, it's difficult. So we have one product, and it's very, you need to go to a bar, you need to go to a club to create that content, and the TikToks, and it's very challenging. So that's something we've had to work around.
Yeah, I said there's two sides of the coin where it really affected us. I mean, that first side, and I think the stuff that everybody wants to talk about, like the doom and gloom, right? The financials, right? So kind of upcoming in our 2020 year, starting in July, we were supposed to see $30,000 in revenue each month. That was a deficit. That just kind of like went nowhere for us. And so let's talk about the realities, right? When you're running your company, you're a founder, you're a CEO, you got to make tough decisions. I told our team in the beginning of April that, hey, I'm not cutting anybody. So if I fall, we all fall. If you fall, I fall. We're just all going to die together. We're going to win together. It's just that basic. And I think what that inspired the team to do was really press in and really begin to innovate. Hannah said something about stepping back and reflecting. A lot of us have kind of talked about that in our speeches. And one thing that was interesting is everything that we were doing in person, it just accelerated our timetable to actually do that virtually. And it's interesting because we shifted and that pivot started to happen from a virtual standpoint. It's almost just like developing a new medium for what you're doing. And, we made that pivot. We had about 3-4 virtual hackathons, ended up partnering with Microsoft in July, and things started to roll, but we didn't really see the revenue kind of start turning around until like September, October, right? And when you think about it, a lot of us are making decisions in real time about what we're doing, how we're doing it. And it's just really that fortitude to just kind of stay consistent. Like, you have the plan. And I will say, I think a big credit to our team for being able to stay focused. I will say being a two-time founder did add a level of discipline and diligence to not panic. And I don't know in my first startup if I would have had that same luxury and experience, even with all the mentors and the coaching and all that good stuff. I think there's just there's a pedigree of the experience that it gives you when you've gone through something the first time, when you can kind of like understand how the roads are going to shift. You don't know it's what direction, but you know it's going to shift a little bit. And so I think that helped us out in a major way.
Yeah, I think on that point, go ahead.
It's okay.
Go ahead.
We're, have a door we are a brick and mortar. We had to close for 2 months, and that was crazy. If you had told me that you would be forced to close your business because of a pandemic, I couldn't have planned for it, and all the planning we did, and like Gerard said, in your business plan, it's not like COVID-19 showed up on there. So, after the initial stress and anxiety that it brought for me, you had to roll with the punches and adapt. And we had already planned to develop a virtual studio, just because being in Tallahassee, we did have a lot of people that were visiting our studio that might be here for session, or students that were leaving, and they wanted us to go with them somehow. So we wanted to develop that. And once the lockdown happened, we were forced to get it going a lot sooner than we had planned. So thankfully, I have an amazing team that was willing to teach to a camera, not a single person in the room, and they would show up and teach to the camera, and we would upload them, and our members were great. It wasn't ideal, but the only thing that changed was that they were taking a class now through a screen. We still used their memberships they had to use their membership pass to stream into the class. We still sent encouraging things. We did Zoom communities, Zoom things to keep the community feeling like we're there, challenges virtually, but the only difference was they were taking it through a screen. But it was hard. We closed for 2 full months. And I'm so thankful we were able to open. A lot of our members have come back. Some people haven't, but we are rebuilding, and it's been hard. It has been hard.
Yeah. So on that point you were saying, I think the only certainty in a company or a startup is that there is no certainty. Like, it's all going to change. Like, whatever you put on that business plan, it's going to change. I don't even like write them anymore. I'll like do 3 dots and that's it. Let's go. But what we saw is, if you look at 2008, 2009, the financial crisis, when I had started college back in 2009, that's when Uber was founded. That's when all these big innovative companies were founded. And that's because it comes from college students. College students have this insight, young people have this insight into like the trends of what's going on. So for us, it's like we ramped up on the companies we were looking at. We were trying to find like who's building what. Because when there's students that are at home, not in school because of COVID, that gives you time to think. That gives you time to build. If you get fired from your job, okay, what can I improve on? What can I make better? So I think innovation in like the next year and a half, like from March to like maybe mid of next year, you're gonna see some amazing companies be born from the fact that there's people out of work or out of like their current like status quo. So for us, it's actually, we welcome it. We welcome change like that.
Yeah, I think your point there is spot on, especially on the innovation side. We literally built like a e-learning studio in my apartment, and decked it out, went through a whole like design thinking process on that. Now, when we're looking at our assessment that's internal, making it external, there's just a lot of different innovations that have emerged. And I didn't think about that 08, 09 era, like the companies that emerged during that time.
And a lot of them were from college students.
Exactly. Yeah, that's good stuff.
The painting business, it didn't affect it at all. We're going to have the same numbers this year as we had last year. I could talk about an hour at the bar. The rules kept changing. I mean, what's the rule today? What's the rule tomorrow? And then we have local rules, and we have we have state rules, and who's governing what. And, and you could open if you're a restaurant, but not if you're a bar. And we have a restaurant license, so now let's serve lunch. And I mean, it was just, every day, like we couldn't plan for a week, because at the end of the week, it changed. So it was literally one day at a time to try to figure this thing out.
I was going to say, our real estate business, there were certain aspects of it that were completely the same. Construction was still going. Our contractors were able to work. They're all in vacant houses, so none of that really changed. But the lending side of things changed. So how we purchase our properties, lending tightened up severely, working with banks. We were working through some refinances that ended up taking way longer than they were supposed to. And then we just kept buying. We, didn't panic, like you said. We were just like, this is what we do for a living. This is how we earn income, and we need to buy more houses in order to sell them later. So we also took advantage of opportunities because a lot of real estate investors, stopped buying or sold what inventory they had. So we just kept buying, and we were like, at the end of this, we'll either, look like the smartest people or the dumbest people, and we'll figure it out. So, we actually saw appreciation through the pandemic, which is crazy. So, you just kind of keep doing what you're doing, and,
I think it's a great opportunity to build the foundational parts of your business. Like we went and we redid our website, we redid our packaging. It's been so long that we're actually redoing all of it again now. But just different things. Maybe you're not doing sales, but if you're gonna make it, if you know you're gonna make it through it, build things that you think, oh, maybe this isn't the best, and take that time to improve it when you wouldn't have had that time before.
Well, this is a great segue for one of our future commercial students who's asking, what advice do you have for students who want to start a business in college, and how do you suggest managing starting a business and going to school full-time through this pandemic?
Just start.
Do it.
Yeah, seriously, take the idea and go after it. I think everybody has said in their speech, the amazing resources that you guys have had. And you heard generational, elements about this, right? You were in school in the 90s. Florida State didn't have the College of Entrepreneurship at that time, right? I finished in 2012 when it was just an institute. Now you're in 2020. Just the amazing resources that you have is so key. I think another panelist actually said this as well about taking your business and weaving it into your curriculum. I did that in grad school, and that was helpful to be able to take a DIS, a direct independent study, and take all the market research I needed to do at that time and apply it to that course. Just allow me to just focus, right? It took off stress of another 3 credit hour class that I wasn't mildly interested in, and I knew I had to take a test or write a paper. It just allowed to shift the time and the energy in order to make it happen. The reality is you're young, and you will always be young as long as your perspective is that way. But you have an opportunity to trip, fall, and actually have support to pick you up, right? When you start to move past 28, 29, you get into your 30s, that's just not really happening anymore like that. You really have to, you fall and you trip, it's okay, well, everybody else falling and trip, and get your butt up and let's keep going, right? But you're in a hotbed of support, so take that time to leverage it, get out there, make it happen. Hannah, Summer, NightCap, everybody is literally started in school, and so I say take advantage of it and make that happen for sure.
I think there's 2 really good strategies to this. If you're younger, you're freshman or sophomore, maybe you build your business in a way that you outsource a lot of things in the beginning, and you can scale it up or down easily, and you can kind of manage with your classes. For me, I use a fulfillment center. Maybe you pay an extra $1.50 or something for everything you ship, but it saves you so much time, and it allows you to do your classes too. So I'm doing an MBA now, and I'm doing my business, and I actually find that I still have some free time, which is very surprising. Or maybe you're a junior, senior. Maybe you work on the foundational pieces of your business, and you utilize your resources here at the entrepreneurship school, and you have it prepared so that as soon as you get out of school, you can scale it up and you can go crazy. Maybe you don't launch the public part of it, but you're just building towards right when you're ready to go, and you have that time. Go for it. So.
One of the benefits of doing it while you're in college is you've kind of already got your utilities and everything already kind of paid for.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, so when I started the business, and I told you I brought my dad in, he came in while I was still a senior at FSU, and I was running a business with employees, but we still had student loans and all that kind of thing that we fell back on. So the rent was kind of paid, so we didn't really have that worry. But I had a roommate. We both had girlfriends. We had a 2-bedroom, 1.5 bathroom. All 4 of us pretty much lived there, and my dad came to stay with us for 2 months. We put a shower curtain to divide the kitchen from the dining room and a single bed, and we did that for 2 months while we started the business. But, I mean, we were in college. We didn't have anything anyway. Yeah. So, it was kind of a great opportunity to do it, as opposed to where you graduate, you get out, you get a job, now you've got to pay the bills, and you've got to do all that, and then it's a little more reluctant to take that step because,
Yeah.
you know, so I say go for it while in college.
You have the most flexibility, I think, with your time in college, especially now that a lot of them are virtual, if not all of them. And you also grow into the person that you need to be to run a business. Your capacity expands, and it also really comes down to time management, and that's whether you're in school or out of school. But there's a lot of funding options when you're in school. There's a lot of support. And a lot of people also think that when I was working at Domi, I would have students come in and tell me, like, I need to build an app, but I don't have $50,000 to hire a developer. You do not need to build an app. You don't. Websites are very, very cheap to start. Going out and testing out your concept is free, relatively free for the most part. So go out and do customer discovery first. See if there's something behind that idea, and then things usually fall into place.
Yeah.
If it's important to you, you'll find the time to do
Exactly.
it, honestly. Because the way we kind of got started in real estate, we actually were both working accounting jobs, and they're very demanding jobs. You're working a lot of hours, and we actually flipped our first house while both of us worked full time. So if you really want to do something, you'll find the time to do it. If you're passionate about it, it's important to you, there's always time in the day to find it. It's just reprioritizing how you spend your time now. So
I think when it comes to being in college, where else in the world can you have developers on the same campus, creatives on the same campus, fashion designers, anything you can think of, there's somebody studying that here at FSU or at any college. People also praise failure here. If you try, you would probably fail. If you go at bat at baseball, you usually hit the ball 30% of the time, and out of those hits, you're going to make a home run 1 out of 6 times on average. So probably you're going to fail. Put your expectations there, but just commit. And if you can't commit, tell all your friends that you're starting a business, and then if you don't do it, you'll look like an idiot, so you'll probably just end up doing it anyway because of the social proof. But yeah, like find network here on campus. There's funds that will invest in students. For example, 1517 fund, their mandate is to only invest in students without revenue traction. So put together a nice pitch deck. Get feedback from investors before asking them for money. You don't even have to start an app before you can get funding. It's just a good team. Like if I find 3 people that are all excellent and they're in college, like we'll fund them because they have the potential to be big. So you don't necessarily have to show revenues to get funding, and you don't need funding to show revenues, but just start, like with Dominick and everybody else here. Start.
Thank you so much for your insight. We have another question. What was your biggest mistake when building your business, and how did you learn from it?
Nobody wants to claim their mistakes.
It's so hard. I was actually meditating on this, but it's almost like if I said it was a mistake, I almost said I regretted it.
Yeah.
I feel like, and the reality is, when you just think about getting 2% better each day, you're just focused on learning, and you learn from it. I think if there was anything that I would say is that was a mistake, it was not taking time to reflect on each and every experience that I really began to encounter. Because, a good mentor of mine said, after the lesson comes the blessing. And really, you can only find the lesson after you've gone through it and you sat still and started reflecting on those moments. But mistake-wise, I don't know. I mean, that doesn't mean that I'm perfect by any means necessary. Progress over perfection. But I just don't look at it as a mistake for the most part.
I think I have a good one. When you first start, there's going to be a lot of marketing people and different types of people who want to they want to come be a part of what you're doing, and they want to kind of solicit you for your business. Don't just say yes. Don't surround yourself with the wrong people on accident. You need to vet them. You need to make sure you trust them. There will be a lot of people who just come at you. Yeah, it could be on LinkedIn. It could be in person at a co-working space. There are certain people that I trusted in the beginning, and it didn't work good, and that probably delayed me a few months. So,
for me, I took a risk. It wasn't necessarily a mistake. When I was running my first company, we were in one market and we were in negotiations with an investor. And that investor would extend our runway from like 4 months all the way to like a year and a half. And I said, all right, so if I go to the second market prematurely and like bet all the money, all the like runway I have to like show more growth, maybe it'll close more capital or something like that. So I go to this, I go to a second market. I'm on national TV in this other country, foreign country. And in my mind, I'm like, I have a month and a half left in the bank, but we're putting on a straight face. Yeah. At the end of the day, the investor fell through, and we had to like wind down that new market. So it wasn't a mistake, because if it would have worked out, it would have been like you said, you looked as a genius. Yeah. But I don't think you specifically need to look at them as mistakes, more like learning opportunities.
Yeah, I'd echo that. Yeah, no true mistakes, because every mistake you learn so much through it. I was going to say our probably biggest mistake was investing in markets outside of our own first. It taught us a lot about how important it was for us to want to feel more in control and having things in our own backyard. And so once we started focusing, in Jacksonville, it completely changed for us. So I think it was, starting with something more familiar would have, helped us get to where we were maybe faster, but we definitely learned so much from investing outside of our market first. So
It's kind of funny. It's like an entrepreneur thing. There's no mistakes. There's just learning, right?
Yeah.
So
But
when we
it's so interesting because you cannot make mistakes, but you can have losses.
yeah,
It's so
yeah.
like it's the most interesting. Like, oh, I lost, but I didn't.
Sure.
Make it.
Yeah, we bought a steam cleaning machine. When we first started the painting business, we did a lot of rentals, which we don't really do anymore. But we figured, oh, hey, we'll go in there, we'll paint them, and then we'll steam clean the carpets. Well, we'll hit them twice. Well, I mean, but then it took away from the painting company, and then the steam cleaning machine kept breaking down, and we're not mechanics, and it just became like a big pain in the butt. And it's like, let's just focus on the painting.
Yeah.
So we lost some money on the steam cleaning machine, but I don't consider it a mistake. I think a mistake is not trying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Great, thank you. Gerard, this question is for you. How has your perspective changed from starting your business as a student to now?
Oh, yeah. Well, your job changes. I mean, we started a business with, I've never taken a business class, right? So I just kind of was just doing it and figuring it out as I went along. And I painted a little bit, but I didn't see a whole lot of growth if I'm just going to be painting. So I was always kind of hiring more people, and it was a very small business. And you learn as you go how to run a small business. But then you find yourself with equity and with dozens of employees and Morgan, and you're not really a small business owner anymore. You're kind of a CEO. And I just got done taking the class here for the small business entrepreneurship program, and you do find yourself changing jobs, and it's a little bit of a gradual thing, but you end up having to start thinking more you start working on your business, not for it, and you definitely take on a different role as you build.
Awesome, thank you. So who comes first, yourself or your business?
There's a saying that it says, always pay yourself first. And I'm really conflicted on that because, like, you need to live, but your business is also, like, your baby. So, like, do you feed your baby or do you feed yourself so you can feed the baby? There's got to be a balance, The business is part of you at the end of the day. When I shut down my company that I was running for, like, 4.5 years, it was part of, like, my self-image and my self-esteem. Like, I was Tarek, owner of this company. And when that, like, ceased to exist, I lost, like, a part of myself. So you have to figure out a way to, like, separate it, but also be involved. So I think business always comes first. But don't make it like if the business is not there anymore, like you're not there anymore either, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point because, I think I ran into that same kind of experience in my first startup of having my identity so tied to the company. But then, now I realize, hey, I'm not Act House, but I live and breathe what we do, right? Because one life's pursuit was, okay, how do I continue to connect the purpose of what I do and what I manifest and what I create? But I also know that I may not be CEO of Act House 10 years from now, right? And if that continues to live on, then Baruch Hashem, right? But I'm not going to like tie myself so much from an identity perspective. And I think it goes back to that overarching point of like self-awareness that a lot of us, kind of talked about. And so yeah, it's a challenging thing. I would say, I mean, these past 3 months, like I had to take a pay cut and make sure the team was good. And was it painful? Absolutely, right? Like my first time really buying groceries at a full clip was like last week and a half or a week and a half ago. And so those things happen, but I wouldn't have made that decision if one, I didn't believe in where we were headed and the movements of where we were going. Sometimes you just gotta call a spade a spade. If the business isn't there, then don't let it be there. Like we had to call a spade in my first startup. Our whole team came together and we had this rule, we throw ideas up in the sky. We all have like imaginary shotguns and we just shoot. And if the idea still is living on and it's, stood the test of time through all the devil's advocate play, then we continue to go with it. But if it doesn't, just hang it up, But it takes that self-awareness to understand that, hey, just because I hung this up on the shelf, it doesn't mean that I am a person have hung up.
I think in the beginning, it's almost inevitable that you're going to want to give it all. You're going to have to give it all.
Yeah.
And that's okay in the beginning, I think, because you, like everyone has said, you have to be passionate about it. And if you're really passionate about it, it's going to be your life in the beginning. But I think it's really important to find, or when it happens, to be able to decipher, is this controlling my life in a negative way?
Yeah.
If it starts to affect you and your relationship and your time with your family or your husband, that's when you have to say, okay, where do I draw the line?
Yeah.
And I think now being in almost 4 years, the first few years I was sleeping 3 hours a night, working all the time. And now I've been able to say, okay, well, there's certain areas of the business that I need to remove myself from and hire help in because I need more time in this area for me and for my husband and for my life. And so drawing that line and when your business starts to affect you and your mental health, it's really important to draw the line and say, it's just not worth that. So how do I reroute and still take care of me, but of course take care of your baby?
I think also when you're performing at your best, it's when you are giving yourself that priority that it needs.
Yeah.
Like, I'm an avid runner. I wake up early every morning, go running.
Girl.
I know you don't.
Good for you.
But, when I don't run, I feel it those days. You get frustrated. Things don't go your way. Things, it's hard being a business owner. And, I work with my husband, so he tells me, go run. You need to run. I come back refreshed, and you're able to, refocus, get energized. And so there's that balance of knowing when you need it, when you don't, and when you need to just take a break. Like you have to turn off, When we have date night, we have date night. We don't talk about the business. It's easy to, especially, working with my spouse. So it's kind of just, learning where to draw the lines and a good balance. So.
Yeah, I think when it comes to being a founder, you have to have a certain zen. If you guys have ever seen the meme of the dog in the kitchen with the fire all over him and he's just everything's fine, you can only have that mentality of the world's crashing down around me and I'm focused on what I'm doing and everything's gonna be fine if you take care of yourself.
Yeah.
So you have to have a balance. Don't take all the business and pay yourself a handsome salary, but live comfortably so that you can execute.
Yeah.
So.
I think there's an important, I don't know the exact answer to this question, but I think there's an important thing to acknowledge where, it's just your business, and then at a certain point, when you take an investor or you hire an employee, there's a jump in responsibility where you have to put, you need to go all into, as much as you can. Obviously, affects your mental health. There's a line, but especially someone like you, if you're managing a lot of money, other people's money, there's definitely a responsibility that's different when you, if you're gonna go take money, you're gonna hire someone, other people are then depending on you, and you have to be ready for that responsibility.
Of course.
You can't run a successful business if you're miserable and
that's not
exhausted and not feeding yourself. I mean, it's not going to go well. So you have to take care of you to run a successful business.
But we all start out putting all those hours in.
But that's how we start.
And then you grow and you learn, and sometimes it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough to put that phone down and not look at that email, but
Yeah.
it's also the reward of doing what we do. We have the opportunity to kind of control our own lives, and
Yeah.
sometimes it's hard, but like, you know, after a while, I've gotten to the point now where I can work 30, 35 hours a week, and I can shut it down. I can go coach, you know, one of my kids' sporting events, or I can go bring them to practice or watch that, and it's a very nice balance, but it takes some time to get there.
Yeah, it's true.
Awesome. I think it kind of relates to this question because a lot of you brought up things about time management, reprioritizing. What habits do you think you should get into to become a successful entrepreneur?
I think emotional intelligence is really important. Like a lot of us have said, it takes a team, and to grow, you eventually have to bring on people that are the strengths to your areas that you are not as strong in. And if you cannot be aware of what your team needs and what your customer needs and what you need to run your business, then it's going to limit you. And I think a lot of times it can get to your head if you're running something, and so you can get stubborn and not be willing to acknowledge the areas that you need to work on. And so I think that is a very important skill to have, and to ultimately grow your business and make sure that you're building a community within your company too.
Yeah, I got some hacks for you guys. So I'll first say this. I think there's one that I have, and it's kind of like layers to it. So you are a person mentally, spiritually, and physically. And so self-governance is so critical and key. For me, like faith is a part of my identity and who I am. And so that respects and making sure that I have that like constant communication with my creator is paramount. And you know, one way that I protect that is I'm on 6 days out of the week. I'm off 1 day, right? It's like my Sabbath rest. And generally, if you come up and pitch an idea to me or talk about business in any type of way, or somebody gives me a call about it, I'm just not answering that question. It's like I literally shut off. It's the only time I wake up at like 9 a.m. like on a Saturday. It's any other time I'm up early, just kind of making it happen. So I think that's one. I would say two, like everybody talks about morning routines, night routines. Like I think that's critical. One that I have is called The Cave. I authored it, so I'll give myself some props. But essentially, like it's just 4 steps. The C is around like communion with self, communion with the creator. And I'm just kind of diving in, doing what I need to just kind of connect with myself. My A is appreciations and affirmations. I'm writing down those things I'm grateful for in the morning. I have like 5 affirmations that are in my closet that I read to myself and kind of hype myself up, which is cool. My V I love the most, which is like visualizing victory. Like really thinking about and visualizing like the victory you're gonna see in your day. And it's been very like extremely helpful. And then E is eat, exercise, and exfoliate. You gotta take care of yourself, you know. And I think the more you can kind of like, you know, and it didn't start off like, oh, I nailed my C, A, and B, E all the time, right? It's like, how do I get 2% better at it? You know, you got to build the habit, you got to build the muscle, and that's good. And it's also important to have a nightly routine. But this isn't my classroom, so I'm not going to give you guys like the acronyms on that either. But I think it's important to have a night routine, important to have a morning routine. You just really got to take care of yourself in that respects. And Hannah said something that was very important in the respects of just like understanding your team. I mean, it's what we live and die by at the Act House. And when you can understand what you're great at, what you're not great at, and what you're also subpar in, then you can understand, okay, hey, in my subpar area, I need to spend some time and dedicate towards like R&D and just getting better on that on my own, and not trying to overtake somebody in my team who's actually great in this and trying to take over their role, right? You can find that balance to really kind of have strong partners and team members for you guys to go forward. So, you know, take that time to kind of write down what your talents and skills are, take an assessment, think through those things, and honestly encourage the people around you to do the same, because then you can really understand who they are and how you guys begin to collaborate. So.
I think being consistent is huge in running a business. I mean, and I mean that by we've got employees, we've got insurance agents, we've got customers, we've got lawyers, we've got people that are calling us. You got to consistently answer the phone. You got to have a consistent demeanor.
Yeah.
You got to have a consistent thought process. You want people to know when they approach you, they're going to get what they're expecting to come back.
Absolutely.
So a consistency in the CEO, I think, is huge when it comes to creating a good business and a good culture.
All right, so this is the final question, and it's a question from me. So what's one quote or motto that you embrace and live by so that our students can, again, gain a lot from you and what you're thinking and how you live your life?
I've had this on my phone since I was in college, on my background, on and off. And it's a quote by Theodore Roosevelt, and it says, "Do what you can with what you have, where you are." No matter where you live, what you're looking to do, as long as you're like what we've been saying, starting and committing, like you can make a difference, you can make an impact. So just start, basically do it. Nike.
I was going to say, just do it. That's the first thing that came to mind, because so many people don't just do it. They talk about it and think about it and learn and read, and they just never take action. And really just taking action to move forward, you can't stop once you start.
Yeah, I don't think I have a signature motto, or I don't. I think when I was younger, I used to read all those quote books a lot, But I don't know if I have one that I could say that this is mine.
I don't know if this is like a quote, but for us, one thing that I heard someone say that stuck with me and that we've really embraced is that business can be and should be a force for good. As an entrepreneur, you have a lot of power and control in what you are putting out into the world. And I think that it's our responsibility to make sure that we are giving back, and that through our business, we're not causing any type of harm to people or the environment, because the reality is a lot of people do for profit. And so whenever we do anything, whether it's within our team or within our products, marketing, anything, it's always focused on doing some type of good with our business.
Something that I've been meditating on is, if you woke up the next day with only the things that you thanked God for the night before, what would you have in front of you? And it's so easy to get caught up in stress and the anxieties and the craziness of just working, but just being thankful for the opportunity to run your own business, to impact people's lives, to make relationships. Just constantly looking back at that this is an amazing opportunity not everyone gets to do, and finding the positives in that, and being thankful to the creator who gave me this opportunity to be here. And at the end of the day, I can work, but I can't control everything. So just being thankful for what I have been given, the resources that I have to keep going.
I would just say, just be open-minded and don't rule anything out. Maybe you think it won't help your business, but you won't know until you try. And if I was like that, I probably would not be sitting here. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that flow through my mind, but one that just consistently comes to my mind is just get 2% better each day. And even when I want to beat myself up about the past, it just kind of helps me not even look back. It's just like, get 2% better each day. That's it. When I want to sit still and be lazy, just get 2% better. And I don't know what it is about just that, 2%. It's not a lot, but for the day, it's incremental. And it really just kind of keeps me focused, keeps me motivated. And it causes me not to judge myself around what was quote unquote missed or lost in anything. So
I know I already said mine, but I like quotes.
Get another one in.
I like quotes.
Another round.
But no, this is not necessarily a quote, but if when you're running a business, you have a vision, right? Not many people can see your vision. So you're the way I like to look at it is, you're a horse with blinders and only you can see your vision. And a lot of times you don't like to take advice because you know what you're doing, but you have to surround yourself with people that you trust. And there's like, if it's your spouse or if it's like some of your best friends, that they can give you that advice. So if like you have to shift your vision a little bit, you know who to listen to. Because they say a lot of times, the quote, I guess, is don't listen to your friends, don't listen to your parents, because they'll usually tell you to not start or not do it or you'll fail or whatever it is. So have that vision, but surround yourself with people that support you, I think is what I wanted to add there.
That is a wonderful Q&A session. You guys have really provided a lot of insight and inspiration to all of our viewers and everyone here today. And on behalf of Jim Moran College, we understand that entrepreneurship is a lot about balance, as you guys stated multiple times. So to give back, we just want to, on behalf of Jim Moran, we just want to give you guys a token of appreciation. It's little gift bags, and I will get them right now.